And what I want to do is bring in a special guest I have here in the studio with me to give us some legal analysis, criminal defense attorney Sara Becker. Sara, great to see you. Thanks for being here. What are your impressions hearing what Ted was just telling us about this case? Talk to me about the good facts, bad facts, and the facts in between that just cannot be changed, and what each side may have to do with them.
Well, you know, it is interesting. It does seem to be skewed a little bit towards the prosecution's favor to me at this point, but we never know how the testimony is going to come out. And I think it's going to be important really to see how the 13-year-old's testimony comes out, especially about his dad's actions and location in that period of time between when the victim left the area she was in with them and went to the shed. Because I think a lot will hinge on whether or not there was a time period that would have made it possible for the defendant to have gone and interacted with his wife and caused the injury, as opposed to have remained where he was working with his son.
Exactly. The son could be an alibi for his dad. This very well may have been a freak accident, as freak as it sounds, with the corn rake in the back, impaling her. I mean, it's just horrific to think about. And if he was with his son the whole time, the son could save his life with his testimony. And then the flip side is, if he left even for a moment, we know how quickly something like that could happen, right?
Certainly. I think that it'll also be interesting to hear, obviously, the expert testimony. What jumped out at me as well was the statements by the defendants to investigators early on, saying that his wife stumbled, or he was trying to get her out the door, and the handle of that rake hit barrels or fertilizer buckets or something of that nature.
It was stuck, is what he was saying.
Right, but that makes me wonder, because I think the big issue they have to overcome, one of them, is going to be the 6 puncture wounds, as opposed to the 4 prongs on the rake. So could that possibly be an explanation as to why there were more puncture wounds than there are prongs? If the rake was rattled around and possibly got moved after she fell on it and the initial impact, that would be interesting to hear, and I'd look forward to hearing an expert address that.
Right. The way Ted described it was so visual. He's such a phenomenal reporter, and the way he was saying, you can see how some of the marks went from a downward direction and an upward direction, which doesn't seem consistent with falling on an object. If she fell back on it, you could see they'd be coming from the same direction, but opposite directions. And then the 6, that's going to be tough to get. The science is going to be really tough to get around. But then also, I guess, you know, by the same token, you think about, okay, let's say you're on the prosecution side. All right, well, why then, and why in front of the son? They've got to have a very clear legal theory reasoning for why do it there on the property with the son to be the one to find his mother. I mean, you would think it would have been concealed better if it were a premeditated murder, as they're saying. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that there is behavior, from what we can tell so far, from the defendant that's inconsistent with him having committed murder in this case, including what you just spoke of. Also, that he actually sent his son to check on his mother, and you would think there's no indication that this man treated his son poorly, or was the kind of parent who would want to subject their child to that, even if he did commit the act. That's going to be something that I think the state's going to have to explain.
Right, Sara. That would be really sicker than sick if he did. Sara Becker, I'm so glad we're going to have you here throughout the show. Thank you so much. And we are so thrilled to have you with us here on Court TV Live. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, lots more coverage for you. We're going to take you live to Iowa, of course, throughout the show today, covering the Todd Mullis trial. This is the corn rake murder trial. Jury selection underway right now. And before we go to break, just want to give you a reminder. You're going to love this. There's another way now for you to get your front row seat to Justice Fix, the latest episode of the new Court TV podcast, now available for you. This week, my friends Vinny Politan and Seema Iyer are breaking down the cheerleader baby murder trial. You can listen to that new episode of the Court TV podcast, now available on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or we've always got it for you on CourtTV.com. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm Julie Grant. Thank you so much for spending part of your Monday afternoon with us. We are on to our next big trial today. This one's really something. This is a case, it's a corn rake murder case. We're covering this trial out of Iowa. Jury selection just beginning this morning. The defendant's name is Todd Mullis. He's a hog farmer, and he's accused of murdering his wife, Amy Lynn Mullis. Court TV's crime and justice reporter Ted Rollins gives us a look at the background information and what Mullis told investigators. Let's watch.
According to the affidavit, Todd Mullis and Amy Mullis were married in approximately 2004. Since their marriage, the affidavit says, Todd and Amy and their children have only lived in a house located in rural Delaware County. On November 10, 2018, at approximately 12:05 p.m., the Delaware County Dispatch Center received a 911 call from Todd in reference to his wife, Amy, being unresponsive. Todd stated that he and Amy and their 13-year-old son, TRM, were working in the North Hog building that day. Amy had surgery a couple days prior, and this was her first day out of the house. She was helping in the hog barn, and while cleaning light bulbs and fixtures, Todd stated that he had observed Amy while working, and she appeared to have dizzy spells. He says he asked Amy to go to a nearby shed and grab a pet carrier before she went into the house. Sometime later, according to the affidavit, he looked outside and didn't see the pet carrier where he had instructed Amy to put it. So he instructed TRM, his son, to go check on Amy and see what she was doing. Todd stated that he heard TRM yell for him. He ran a short distance to the shed and observed Amy lying in a crouched position just inside the doorway with a corn rake impaled in her back. He attempted to take Amy out of the building, but the corn rake that was lodged in her back was hitting the fertilizer crates. He then stated that he laid Amy down and pulled the corn rake out of her back. According to the affidavit, he then said he placed Amy in his pickup and with his son drove towards Manchester Hospital. He says he called 911 on the way to the hospital, and medical services reached Todd and moved Amy from his pickup to an ambulance. Amy was then transported to the Regional Medical Center in Manchester and was pronounced dead.
Mullis says that he believes his wife, Amy Lynn, fell on that corn rake. But prosecutors say that Mullis' story just doesn't add up. Now, here's why. This is what a corn rake looks like. Let's take a look. We have a picture of it for you. I want to show you the corn rake. Okay, I understand we don't have it. We'll get it for you. No worries. These are some photographs of the defendant, his wife, his deceased wife. They look like the perfect family from the outside. They really do. They have 3 beautiful children together, one of whom will be testifying in this trial. There's that photograph that I wanted to show you. This is what a corn rake looks like. So it's got 4 prongs. It's kind of like a pitchfork, except it's curved at the edges. You can see that. Now, there were 6 puncture wounds in Amy Mullis's back, so that's problematic there. Now, 2 of those puncture wounds were at an upward angle, and then 4 of them were at a downward angle. So this pitchfork was used in 2 different directions. That's the science behind this. So 6 wounds in her back, 2 at an upward angle, 4 at a downward angle. So certainly something the prosecution is going to hang their hat on when they call the medical examiner to give testimony. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Sarah Becker. Sarah, you were just saying that that's really going to be key for you, the Emmy's testimony in how this death happened. We know he's already said this was a homicide. Mm-hmm. Is it a freak accident, as the defendant says it is? How can you argue with that science? What do you think in terms of presentation for the jury? I mean, I was getting a little creeped out just looking at that graphic that we made, that really cool graphic we made here at Court TV for our wonderful viewers. And I'm trying to visualize this, thinking, oh my gosh, what a way to die, have that going into one's back. How do you think the prosecution can effectively present this testimony with the medical examiner to really paint that horrific picture for this jury?
You know, Julie, I think it's going to be a case where demonstrative evidence will be very helpful to the state, and be it through computer simulations like you all put up. And I have to say, when I first heard about this case, I had to Google what a corn rake looked like to try to figure out what was happening. And then when I saw that graphic, it was very helpful. It did raise more questions for me, though. It looks like, how how easy would it be to swing it from down below and get the upward angle, which is why I think the state's really going to have to lay it out very clearly and give maybe 3D replications by computer, or even kind of a live in court mannequin maybe with the locations of wounds presented. Something that's helpful in understanding how their theory comes about that all 6 wounds could only have been caused by the defendant's actions as opposed to an accidental fall and then jostling of the rake.
Gotcha. Sarah, appreciate your thoughts on that. And I want to get your thoughts on another case. Let's switch gears now and talk about that Skylar Richardson case out of Ohio. We had branded it the cheerleader baby murder trial. She was only found guilty of the crime of abuse of a corpse, for what she did in the way she buried the body in her parents' backyard, but found not guilty of all those crimes of aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, endangering a child. I wanted to show us a clip. This is from the sentencing. This happened on Friday, the punishment the judge doled out, and I want to get your thoughts on the other side, please. Let's watch.
We are here today for sentencing. Has everybody had the opportunity to review the PSI?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Judge.
Any reason we should not go forward with sentencing today?
No, Your Honor. No, Judge.
The defendant was convicted yesterday of the abuse of a corpse charge, which is a felony of the 5th degree. The maximum punishment is a $2,500 fine and 12 months in prison. Counsel, we agree that this is a mandatory community control case, right?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Judge.
What that means, Ms. Richardson, is because this is a felony of the 5th degree and you have no prior criminal record and you don't fit the other statutory criteria, the most, I am required by law to place you on community control. That's what we used to call in the old days probation. That means that the maximum that I can sentence you to today, even though the maximum for this offense is 12 months in prison, the maximum that I can sentence you today is to 6 months of local incarceration. That means in the county jail. We have 7 days of jail time credit. I think one thing it's important to point out, Ms. Richardson, before we get started with the trial or with the sentencing hearing in this case, is that in the entire time that this case was pending, back when it started, I set a bond, and that you've been sleeping at home while this trial has been going on, and you've been out and about. I know that there was some angst about that, but the reason I do set a reasonable bail in a case is because you're presumed to be innocent. That means that you haven't been convicted of anything, and you have the right to a reasonable bail. Yesterday, after you were convicted of the felony, even being a low-level felony that it was, you're no longer presumed to be innocent. And while it's fair that you would be out in the community while we figure out what's going on with the trial, when you no longer have that presumption of innocence, it's fair that you be in jail until we figure that out, which is why we are here today. I think one other point that bears mentioning at this point is, I'm not sure it's really relevant to what we have going today, but this has been an extraordinarily high-profile case. And lots of people in the community are talking about this case, whether it be in their workplace, posting about it on the internet. It seems like everybody has an opinion on the case. I think about everybody in Warren County has the CourtTV app on their phone now, which means that everybody knows about this case. Prior to us beginning this case, the court undertook a cooperative effort with our friends in the media to make sure that the trial of this case, not all the gossip, not all the press conferences and what goes on in the hallway, but the actual presentation of the evidence and the arguments of the lawyers was available for everybody to see. I allowed the cameras in the courtroom, even the one behind me that I was not very thrilled about, so that people would have the opportunity to see this. Our IT people beefed up our bandwidth. We even drilled a hole in the side of the building so that we could run the wires out to the van. The reason that I say this is I think there is some value in the community having the opportunity to actually watch this trial. I only have 40-some seats in the courtroom, so it's out there. So if people want to know what happened in the trial, they can go watch for themselves. They don't have to rely on what somebody posts about it or what somebody tweets about it. They can see the actual evidence that was presented. One of the reasons that I did this is so that the community, whether they agreed with the verdict or not, would have confidence in the way that decision was reached. So somebody comes up to you and talks about how we have a baby killer that got off in Warren County, or we have an innocent person who was convicted and didn't do anything wrong, we can direct them to the actual evidence so that maybe you can get a better idea of whether or not they have an accurate opinion of whether justice was served in this case.
All right, Sarah Beck, I want to turn to you. Whether justice was served, do you think the punishment fits the crime?
I do. She was acquitted of the most serious offenses, and it seems like community supervision is absolutely appropriate for the conviction.
Agreed. Hopefully there will be a mental health evaluation and ordered compliance with any recommended treatment as part of that. Would certainly hope so with those eating disorders that came out through the evidence in this trial. Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for staying with us here on Court TV Live. Coming up next for you, we've got your daily sidebar. Lot to talk about. Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman has been sentenced. Also, Todd Mollis, a hog farmer up in Iowa, is about to stand trial for allegedly murdering his wife with a corn rake. And then next week, the murder trial for former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger will begin. Our anchor team will discuss all of this for you on the other side of this break. Don't go away.